Hello, I'm Jimmy Bach, and this is History with Jimmy, along with our producer Chandler Holmes. And today we have a special one that we're doing. We have our local historian, Brian Caverly, and we have a special guest, Rusty Bellis, that's here to help us out with this one. So, Brian, do you want to start out, being as you donated the item that we're talking about?
All right. Jim has asked me to discuss this item, which is an old deed, 1814. And it's interesting because, and I'll talk about the deed here a little bit, but the thing that is really interesting is that this is apparently for a mill property, and I guess that's Union Township, that wound up being owned by Rusty here now. The mill's gone. But the deed itself is dated April 14th, 1814, and it conveys this piece of property, and it's, I won't go into the details, but it's described in such a way as to locate it starting at the mouth of Shickshinny Creek and going up the creek a certain distance, which puts it where Rusty's land is now. This type of deed is referred to as an indenture, and you can see perhaps the dark name up here at the top. This is reflected in the top of this deed that has a wavy line cut in it. There are different kinds of deeds over the centuries. These all came from English law, but the basic kind of deed that we've used in the Commonwealth is referred to as an indenture. And an indenture really is nothing more than what we would call a deed today. When it was drawn up in the original form, it was done in duplicate. The buyer kept one, the seller kept one, and if there was ever a dispute, two pieces could be put together on this indented line where they were separated, cut in half. So if there wasn't any question, it could be resolved that way, which is the reason for indenture. It really doesn't follow that form anymore and hasn't for a long time, but I guess it's become a word of art. People became familiar with the term indenture, and you'll see in modern form deeds, the term is usually still reproduced, this indenture, and then it goes on to describe the property. Deeds in general, I don't know how much information you want about deeds, but go ahead.
Well, just talking about indenture deeds, because it looks different, what is it printed on?
This is, as far as I can tell, this is vellum, which would have been some kind of animal skin, probably sheepskin.
Sheepskin, possibly?
And they were done this way for years, which is probably one of the reasons why this deed is still around, because it was made to stand the test of time.
And what you're saying is it was cut so that nobody could duplicate another deed and say this was the deed originally, it was this deed right here, because it had to match where it got cut on top. Is that?
Well, I guess that to a certain extent, it was more the buyer kept the piece and the seller kept the piece, and somewhere down the line, if they had a dispute as to what was done, it was easy to prove because the seller took his and the buyer took his and put them together, and that's clearly what it was. It stopped somebody from trying to insert a new section that wasn't part of the original deed.
Okay, all right. So Rusty, how did you find out that you owned a property that had a mill onto it?
Well, it's pretty obvious. My parents bought land from my dad's aunt across the road from where I live right now, across the road from where the mill property is, around 1960. And my great aunt, in the meantime, passed away, and her son became the owner of two parcels across the road, one of which is where our house is now. My wife and I bought in 1978, I believe, and there was another piece behind it, which included the mill property and the high water mark for the dams that we purchased from Jim Martin, which was my great aunt's son, mill itself, the wooden structure on top, I don't know when that was dismantled. I think it was apparently pirated for the lumber because it was made out of all chestnut, which is, you know, a valuable lumber.
Right.
The foundation is still standing and nearly intact except for a section that was vandalized at one point. Some kids decided they wanted to dam up the creek a little more, so they got up on top of the wall and threw some of it down until my son stopped them. But by the time I remember being down there, there was no wooden structure other than some of the window casing were still in the foundation.
Right.
But it's kind of a unique mill in the fact that they built it in a strategic place because there's a waterfall there, so they're able to get the water elevated for the water wheel naturally. But they built it on the side of a ledge, which is probably about a 30-degree slope, and built this huge structure on there with some gigantic rocks. And I sit there and look at it and I have no idea how they did it.
Wow.
But it's, like I said, still pretty much intact. It's a unique mill in the fact that there's a separate compartment, like in the basement part of it, which is the part where the water wheel was. It was an internal water wheel. You see most mills have an external water wheel exposed, which you see in pictures and so forth, but this one was internal. I guess one of the reasons for that, probably it was more usable in the winter, it wouldn't freeze up so much. As far as when it was constructed and operated, I don't know the exact history of it. The only thing I found was in the Luzerne County, the history of Luzerne County in 1896. There's a paragraph in there describing or listing the mill, not in a great amount of detail. And up until this morning, actually, I was talking with someone and found out that he's a relative of mine, that he has a family diary, and there's an entry in there, a couple entries about this patriarch bringing grain to the mill, and he says it was probably around 1880, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So we know it dates back at least that far, and I'm sure it goes back quite a bit further than that. And the last operator that I knew was a man by the name of Bird Masters, who lived right in the neighborhood there. He ran it. I don't know when it closed, but my dad was born in 1927, and he tells stories about being in there as a child. Some of the other neighborhood boys would sneak in the mill in that compartment where the water wheel was and ride the water wheel until they got caught. They said that Bird Masters ran the mill basically by his feel of vibration because he was deaf and mute, but he was still able to tell how the thing was running.
Wow.
Just by the vibration. And apparently there was a different vibration when kids would ride on the wheel. That's how he would know that we had other compartments. So he would go and chase them out of there. So that's pretty much all I know. But the pilings for the flume that ran from the dam, there are two dams actually, one at the top of the falls, and there's another dam up further behind our house. And I think they controlled the depth of the water in the primary dam during droughts by the amount of water in the secondary dam.
Oh, okay.
But the dam is still there, somewhat deteriorated from weather over the years, but and the dams are pretty much silted in anymore. But the pilings from the bottom of the dam to the mill, probably a distance of 80 to 100 feet. There's several pilings there, increasing in size, built kind of like a pyramid, four-sided with a flat top, and the flume, the wooden flume, on top of that, carried the water down to the water wheel inside the building.
Well, and most of these were very prominent, I would take it, going back to provide power that were on cricks so that they could make the grain and
Right.
many different things that they use these for, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And within, well, we have a picture here. Within that picture,
And this is a picture that he donated to the museum, and we're very appreciative of that.
and this probably a little bit hard to see from that distance, but this shows the structure, and you can see where they would offload the grain on a platform here and pull it up with a pulley system, ropes, and pull it up to take it into the mill to grind it. And the addition on the side here, from what I understand, was a post office and a small general store. Now, up here a little bit toward the highway a little bit, this is offset a couple 100 feet or so from the road. You can't even really really see it, but up in this area, there was another building that I assumed for years was a house, but then I heard that was a post office at one time. So I don't know if this post office was secondary to that one or vice versa, but that other one burned down at one point, so. You can see some people here, I would assume this is probably late 1800s or early 1900s. You can tell by their attire, so.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much for donating this picture. It adds to the story that with the deed that Brian's donated. Brian, do you have anything to add about the different mills in the area?
Well, I think every community had at least one mill. Population centers did. Shikshimi had one where the Garrison School building is. Used to be a mill, and what we affectionately call the furnace dam was actually the dam for that mill. And the flume ran from the furnace dam, which is at the far end of Shikshimi going out toward Union Township. It ran from there down to where the mill was and ran the wheel there.
Okay.
Just one example I can think of.
Incidentally, about maybe a quarter of a mile or less downstream from this mill, there's another place that used to have a water-driven sawmill. And they actually call that Sawmill Lane going back. It was a private lane. And along the ledge there, the long pool, they always call it the Sawmill Dam. So there was a sawmill right there at some point, and operated by water power as well.
I think I did see that on a map that we had to someplace now that you mentioned that and stuff, so, well, we certainly learned some things today, and we're very appreciative of you coming in and sharing this information and donating this picture, and also Brian with donating that deed and telling us some more history there. And we want to thank everybody for coming today and helping us. So this is episode 79, and we will have this up and running. We're going to be filming 3 episodes today, and we want to thank everybody. So this is Jimmy Bach, along with producer Chandler Holmes and our special guest Rusty Bellis, and of course our local historian here, Brian Caverly. So thank you very much. Thank you.